My name is Danielle Hayes, and I'm 35 years old. Before I take you deep into my story, let me welcome everyone listening. Tell me, where are you watching from? Canada, the United States, maybe somewhere else. Wherever you are, settle in, because what happened to me is something I never imagined, not even in my wildest thoughts. Now let me start with a moment that changed everything. The highest peak, the moment my whole world spun in one phone call. It happened on a cold Wednesday morning. I remember because I hadn't even finished my first cup of coffee. My phone rang. My mom's name flashed on the screen. I picked up, thinking it was one of her usual short calls. Did you eat? How's work? Send me the money when you can. That kind of thing. But this time her voice was frozen. Hard like ice. She said, I disown you. You will hear from my lawyer. Just like that. No reason. No warning. No emotion. I sat there stunned. My heart thumped so loudly it felt like drums in my ears. After everything I had done for her. After all the nights I stayed awake helping her with bills. After paying her rent for almost 4 years. I swallowed and simply said, okay. Then I ended the call. And for the first time in a long time I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I didn't chase after an explanation. I just stopped. I stopped every money I had been sending her. Every support. Every little thing. And then 3 days later my dad called. But not calmly. Not like normal. He called in panic. His voice was shaking, his breathing heavy, and he said, and that is where I'll pause that moment. Let's rewind. Let me take you back to the beginning so you truly understand how a daughter who gave everything ended up hearing those cruel words from her own mother. My story starts long before that icy phone call. I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, in a small house that always smelled like burnt toast because my dad loved making breakfast but hated using the timer. My parents were not perfect. They argued a lot. They loved each other in the loudest and strangest ways. And as their only child, I learned early how to survive by being quiet, kind, and useful. My dad, Thomas Hayes, was the softer one. He joked too much, hugged too long, and believed every problem could be solved with a long walk and a cup of sweet tea. My mom, Linda Hayes, was the opposite. Strong, strict, and sharp-tongued. She liked control the way some people like sunshine. If it wasn't her way, it wasn't happening. And then there was my grandma, Dad's mother, Margaret Hayes, who lived in Detroit but visited often. She was the peacekeeper, the kind of woman who always had peppermint candies in her purse and always reminded me, you can't pour from an empty cup, sweetheart. Take care of yourself too. Growing up wasn't easy, but I stayed soft. I stayed kind. I learned to listen more than I spoke. I learned to help others even when no one helped me. And somehow that softness became my strength. By 26, I had built a stable career as an accountant. By 27, I was paying some of my mom's bills. By 29, I was paying most of them. She always had a reason. She lost a job, she needed medication, she was too stressed to work, or it wasn't enough this month. And because she was my mom, I helped. I believed helping family made me good. I believed kindness always came back. But there's a truth I learned the hard way. Sometimes kindness becomes a rope people pull until you break. Still, I didn't complain. I didn't tell anyone. I just worked harder, saved less, and sent money. Some months, I ate noodles so she could buy groceries. Some nights, I stayed up balancing her bills before my own. And every time she said, thanks, even in that dry tone she used, my heart felt warm because at least I knew I was doing something good. Then something happened that slowly changed everything. It started with a small moment. One of those less extreme events that doesn't seem big at first. One Saturday afternoon I visited her. I had brought groceries the same way I always did. But when I walked into her kitchen, I saw 2 brand new luxury handbags on the counter. Tags still on. Expensive ones. Ones even I wouldn't buy for myself. I asked, Mom, where did you get those? And she shrugged like it was nothing. Bought them. I needed something nice for once. I stood there quietly, holding a bag of potatoes, suddenly noticing things I had never paid attention to before. Her new shoes, the gold bracelet, the newest phone model. Things didn't add up. The math didn't math. But I didn't question her again. I didn't want to believe my kindness was being used. I didn't want to believe my own mother could take advantage of me. So I stayed quiet. And things kept getting stranger. One day she would act like she loved me. The next day she would speak to me like I was an enemy. One weekend she would praise me to her friends. The next she would complain that I didn't do enough. Kept giving. Because that's who I was. 'Cause I believed love meant patience. 'Cause I believed family meant loyalty. But my dad knew something was wrong. He watched quietly. He didn't say much. But whenever I visited, he always hugged me tighter than normal, like he could sense a storm forming. And the storm came. It arrived in one phone call. The phone call where my mother's voice turned cold. The phone call where she said she disowned me. The phone call that made my chest burn and my mind spin. The phone call that made me stop supporting her. And just when I thought the silence that followed was the end, something even more shocking was waiting for me. Because 3 days later my dad called in panic. His voice trembling. His words scattered. His tone unlike anything I had ever heard from him. He said, "Danielle, your mother, she..." And right there, as my stomach dropped and the room spun, something happened that changed the direction of everything. Something extreme. Something I never saw coming. Something that marked the beginning of a new war in my family. When my dad said my name that day, "Danielle, your mother, she..." His voice cracked like something inside him finally snapped. Before he could even finish, the line cut, and I just sat there, frozen, staring at my phone like it might speak on its own. But let's not jump too fast. Before I take you straight into the chaotic moment that followed that half sentence, let me slow down and show you the path that brought us there, because every storm has clouds before the thunder. It started right after that cold phone call when my mom said those awful words. "I disown you. You will hear from my lawyer." I had no idea what I had done, no clue what had pushed her to that point. But something in me, something deep and tired, decided I wasn't going to beg or cry or explain myself. I simply said, "Okay." And I stopped everything. Stopped the rent I paid every month. Stopped the money I sent on Fridays. Stopped the little transfers I made whenever she texted, "I need it now." And on the outside life went quiet. But on the inside, everything started to shake. At first, I tried to convince myself that maybe she didn't mean it. Maybe she was stressed or angry at something else. Maybe she'd call back and soften her voice. I kept checking my phone, expecting a new message, even a short one. Nothing came. Instead, for the first time in years, I had peace in my bank account. I bought groceries without checking my balance twice. I slept without staying up late worried about how to stretch my paycheck. I even treated myself to a warm breakfast at a cafe downtown, something I never allowed myself because of guilt. But of course, peace never lasts long when someone is used to taking from you. By the second day, I felt a strange mix of relief and guilt. Should I call her? Should I apologize even though I didn't know why? Should I explain myself? But then I remembered every time she made me feel small. Every time she made me feel like help wasn't kindness, it was obligation. Every time she accepted my sacrifices without a drop of gratitude. Still, I didn't wish her harm. That's the thing about people with soft hearts. Even when we're hurt, we still care. By the third day, the silence became heavy. Almost like the air around me knew something was coming. And it came with my dad's panic call. But before I take you there, before I shake you with what happened next, let's rewind to earlier that same day because something less extreme but very important happened that morning. I had gone to visit my grandmother, Margaret, in Detroit. She knew something was wrong the moment I walked in. She always did. Grandma looked at me with those sharp blue eyes that could see straight through any lie. "Sweetheart," she said, "why do you look like a child holding broken glass?" I didn't want to tell her at first. I didn't want her to think badly of my mother or think I was complaining. But grandmas always know when you're hiding something. So eventually I told her everything about the cold phone call, about the threat, about me saying okay, and about stopping the money. She sat very still. Too still. Then she slowly reached out and held my hands. Danielle, she said softly, kindness is good. But kindness without boundaries becomes self-destruction. Her voice trembled a little. You have carried your mother for too many years. Parent is supposed to raise their child, not use their child. You did the right thing by stopping. But then she added something that made my heart squeeze. Still, something is wrong. Something bigger than what she told you. I didn't understand. Not until later. Grandma hugged me tightly when I left her house that evening. She even gave me a small peppermint candy from her purse, a habit she'd had since I was 5 years old. Take care of yourself, she whispered. And be ready. Storms always come after silence. I didn't know how true her words were. When I got home, the sun was setting, casting orange light through my living room window. I had barely taken off my shoes when my phone rang. Dad's name appeared flashingly bright, almost urgent. I answered with a smile, ready to hear his usual jokes. But instead he was breathing hard like he had been running. His voice shook so badly that I felt fear rise inside me like boiling water. Danielle, your mother, she. The phone line cut sharply. Froze. I tried calling him back. Once. 5 times. No answer. Panic crawled up my spine. Something wasn't right. Something was very wrong. And then the extreme event hit like a punch from nowhere. Before I could call again, my doorbell rang. Hard. Loud. Not one polite ring. 3 sharp hits like a warning. I walked slowly toward the door, my heart racing. When I opened it, what I saw made my stomach flip. It wasn't my dad. It was someone else. Someone I didn't expect. Someone who had never once come to my home before. Standing on my doorstep, sweating wild-eyed, shaking as if the whole world was burning behind him, was my mother's lawyer. The same lawyer she said would deal with me. He looked terrified. Not angry. Not official. Terrified. Danielle, he gasped. You need to come with me now. My heart stopped. My breath vanished. He looked like a man who had seen something he couldn't understand or explain. And then he said something that made my knees almost give out. It's your mom. Something happened. He didn't finish. He couldn't. His voice broke. The lawyer's face looked pale, almost gray, like someone who had seen a ghost and was still trying to understand if it had been real. His breath came in short bursts. Sweat soaked the collar of his shirt even though the evening breeze was cool. I stood in my doorway frozen, gripping the handle so tightly my fingers went numb. Something happened to your mom, I whispered. He swallowed hard. Danielle, we don't have time. Please, just come with me. His voice shook in a way that told me this wasn't about paperwork. This wasn't about any legal warning or threat. This was something urgent. Something dangerous. Something he wasn't prepared to face alone. My mind raced. My heart pounded. My legs felt heavy. Where is my dad? I asked. He opened his mouth but closed it again, like the truth was too heavy to release. And that silence, just that 1 second of silence, told me everything I needed to know. Whatever happened. It wasn't small. Still, I grabbed my keys and stepped outside. The air felt thick, like the world was holding its breath. I followed him to his car, a dark SUV that smelled like stress and stale coffee. He drove fast, too fast, and not once did he look at me. His eyes stayed glued to the road, jaw clenched so tight I could see the muscles twitching. I finally said, "Tell me what's going on." He shook his head. "Your dad will explain." That sentence made my whole body stiffen. Because if my dad was supposed to explain, then something was wrong with my mother. And if something was wrong with my mother, why was the lawyer involved? The city lights blurred past us as we sped through Cleveland. Each passing street made my fear climb higher and higher. I wanted answers, but a small part of me didn't want to hear them. When we finally turned onto my parents' street, I felt my breath stop in my chest. Because their house, our family home, was surrounded. 2 police cars, an ambulance, people standing outside whispering. lights flashing red and blue against the windows like a warning sign painted across the walls. My legs turned weak. My throat closed up. The lawyer put the car in park and whispered, "Stay close to me." I stepped out slowly, the cold air hitting my face like a slap. Everything felt unreal, dreamlike, like I was floating outside my own body. When I saw my dad on the porch, that's when it hit me. He looked broken. His hands shook. His eyes were red. His breathing came sharp and shallow. "Dad!" I ran toward him. He pulled me into a hug so tight it hurt, but he didn't say a word. His whole body trembled against mine. "Dad, what happened? Please tell me." He opened his mouth, but before he could speak, a paramedic stepped out of the house carrying equipment, followed by a police officer writing notes. Something inside me twisted. My stomach felt like it was collapsing. I pulled away from my dad just enough to search his face. "Where is Mom?" He looked away. Down at the porch. His shoes. Anywhere but my eyes. That was when I realized. He didn't want to tell me. He didn't know how. But before he could try, someone called my name. "Danielle." Turned. And standing in the doorway of the house was my mother. Alive. Breathing. But completely different. Her hair was messy. Her face was pale. Her eyes, those sharp, cold eyes, looked scared. Truly scared. She stared at me like she was seeing me for the first time in her life. "Danielle," she whispered, her voice breaking. I stood still. Frozen. Not because she was there, but because of how she looked at me. She looked guilty. She looked sorry. She looked like a person who had done something terrible and now feared the consequences. My mom reached out a shaking hand toward me. I didn't know. I didn't know it would get this bad. And blinked. Didn't know what. She opened her mouth, but the officer behind her gently touched her shoulder. "Ma'am, we need to finish our questions." My mother froze. Then she slowly stepped back inside. I stared helplessly as the officer closed the door, leaving me outside with more questions than answers. I turned to my dad. He closed his eyes. And for the first time in my life, I saw him look truly ashamed. But before I could ask anything, he whispered, "Danielle, your mother did something. Something she didn't expect would come back to her." My heart pounded. The world tilted. Everything felt like it was sliding out of place. What did she do? He didn't answer. 'Cause right then, something even more extreme happened. A second police officer walked out of the house holding a small box, sealed inside an evidence bag. The officer looked toward me, then toward my dad, then whispered something to the detective on the lawn. Whatever he said made the detective's eyes widen. He looked straight at me, only me, and began walking in my direction. His face serious, his steps slow. His eyes sharp and focused, like he was approaching someone connected to something big. When he finally reached me, he lifted the evidence bag with the box inside. "Ms. Hayes, we believe this belongs to you." My blood turned ice. Because inside that bag, inside that mysterious box, was something I recognized immediately. Something from my own past. Something I never thought I would see again. Something my mother should never have had. And just like that, the world around me spun and my knees almost gave out. That moment, me staring at that box, became the new center of everything. The beginning of a deeper truth I never expected. The detective held the evidence bag up carefully. Like whatever was inside it mattered more than any of us standing there in the cold night air. And it did. Because even before he spoke, even before he explained, even before my dad exhaled that long, shaky breath behind me, I knew exactly what that box was. It was small, wooden, dark brown with a carved rose in the center. A box I hadn't seen in almost 15 years. A box that belonged to me. A box that held something I lost during one of the hardest seasons of my life. Seeing it again felt like someone reached inside my chest and twisted everything. The detective stepped closer. "Ms. Hayes, you should take a look." My hands trembled as he handed me the bag. The plastic crinkled loudly in the otherwise quiet yard. I swallowed hard and slowly opened it. My mind raced. Questions pouring like rain, crashing into each other. Why did Mom have this? How did she get it? Why was it evidence? What did she do? I finally slid the box out of the bag. My heart hammered so fast I felt lightheaded. Opened it. And the moment the lid lifted, a soft gasp escaped my throat. Inside, just where I left it, was the small silver bracelet with a heart charm. The bracelet my grandmother gave me when I was 20. The bracelet I lost the night my mother and I had our worst fight years ago. The bracelet I cried over for a week. My mother had told me she'd never seen it. Told me I probably misplaced it. Told me to stop being dramatic. But she had it, all along. I stared at it, fighting the sting in my eyes. My dad placed a gentle hand on my shoulder. "Danielle, that's not the worst part," he whispered. The detective cleared his throat. "We found this box hidden in a cabinet, locked behind several other things. But the reason we collected it as evidence was not the bracelet itself." My stomach twisted. "Then what?" He motioned to the open door. "Inside the house, we also discovered documents, financial documents." Dad pinched the bridge of his nose as if bracing for impact. "Your mother," the detective continued, "has been taking loans, credit cards, and lines of credit under your name." My chest tightened. My knees weakened. I felt the world tilt. Under my name. Under my identity. "How long? How much?" Dad whispered, voice breaking. "She didn't think it would get this far, Danielle. She didn't expect it would catch up. And when you stopped sending money, everything came crashing down. Felt like someone had struck a match to my memories. Every odd bill. Every suspicious letter I shrugged off. Every moment she pushed me to help her fast. Every time she dismissed my questions about her spending." I looked down at the bracelet in the box. Something sweet from the past sitting beside something bitter from the present, and I felt a strange mix of heartbreak and clarity. My mother didn't disown me because she was angry. She disowned me because she was scared. Because she knew the truth was coming. Because she thought distancing herself would protect her. But before I could process any of that, before I could breathe or cry or scream, the paramedic stepped outside again. "Ma'am," he said to the detective quietly. "We're ready." The detective nodded, then turned back to me. "You should come inside. There's more we need to discuss." My entire body stiffened. More than identity theft. More than hidden accounts. More than years of lies. Felt the air shift. Something heavy pressed down on all of us. Something we hadn't addressed yet. I looked at my dad. His face was pale, eyes full of fear. "Danielle," he said, voice barely a whisper. "Something happened to your mother tonight. Something serious." Cold wave washed over me. "What happened?" I murmured. The detective stepped aside, motioning toward the door. "We need to show you." My feet refused to move. My heart pounded so loud I felt it in my throat. The lawyer, who had been silent the entire time, stepped forward. "You need to know," he said quietly. "She didn't mean for it to go this far. But tonight, something forced everything out into the open." "What happened?" I asked again, voice breaking. My dad swallowed hard, eyes glistening. "Danielle, your mother, she..." But before he could finish, a scream ripped through the house. A woman's scream. Loud, sharp, terrified. Everyone turned toward the door. The paramedic inside yelled, "We need help in here." The detective ran in. The paramedic rushed back out to grab equipment. My dad grabbed my arm, panicking. "Stay here." But I didn't. I stepped forward. 1 step. 2 steps. Until I was standing in the doorway of the house. And what I saw inside made my heart jump into my throat. There, lying on the living room floor, surrounded by paramedics, was my mother. Her body shaking. Her breathing rapid. Her face twisted in fear. And as another wave of tremor seized her, she choked out one sentence. One that silenced the entire room and shifted every truth I thought I knew. "Danielle, they're coming for all of us." Her voice cracked. Her eyes widened. And then she went still. Froze. Everyone froze. Those words. That fear. That warning. Everything changed in a second. And that moment, my mother collapsing after whispering that terrifying sentence, marks the final cliffhanger. 'Cause this is where the truth begins. This is where the danger becomes real. This is where everything she hid starts catching fire.